Are we ready to get spooky?
This mug is going to be filled with coffee, and oh, the joy, the joy. This is the tinfoil hat. It reminds me when it's time to wear my tinfoil hat. Quentin Fiore. The medium is the massage and inventory of effects. Compartmentalization of occupations and interests bring about a separation of that media of activity commonly called practice from insight of imagination, from excessive looking. Each of these attributes is then assigned his own place in which it must abide. Those who write the anatomy of experience then suppose that these divisions inhere the very constitution of human nature. John Dewey. Shock of recognition. In an electric information environment, minority groups can no longer be contained, ignored. Too many people know too much about each other. Our new environment compels commitment and participation. We have become irrevocably involved with and responsible for each other. Ours is a brand new world of alone, all at onceness. Time has ceased, space has vanished. We now live in a global village, a simultaneous happening. We are back in acoustic space. We have begun again to structure the primordial feeling, the tribal emotions from which a few centuries of literacy divorced us. We have had to switch our stress of attention from action to reaction. We must know to advance the consequences of any policy or action, since the results are experienced without delay. Because of electronic speed, we can no longer wait and see. George Washington once remarked, "We haven't heard from Benjamin Franklin in Paris this year. We should write him a letter." At the high speed of electronic communication, purely visual means of apprehending the world are no longer possible. They are just too slow to be relevant or effective. Unhappily, we confront the new situation with an enormous backlog of outdated mental and psychological responses. We have been left dangling. Our most impressive worlds and thoughts betray us. They refer us only to the past, not to the present. Electric circuitry profoundly involves man with one another. Information pours upon us instantaneously and continuously. As soon as information is acquired, it is very rapidly replaced by still newer information. Our electrically configured world has forced us to move from the habit of data classification to the mode of pattern recognition. We can no longer build serially, block by block, step by step, because instant communication ensures that all factors of the environment and of experience coexist in a state of active interplay. Solid integrated circuit in large hundreds, several hundreds of times. The new electronic interdependence recreates the world in the image of a global village.
But in 1967, that was like the age of Aquarius. They had no idea. Computers weren't even invented. The internet wasn't even invented. How did they know to talk about this? Because they're talking about the internet.
We have now become aware of the possibility of arranging the entire human environment as a work of art, as a teaching machine designed to maximize perception and make everyday learning a process of discovery. Application of this knowledge would be the equivalent of a thermostat controlling room temperature. It would seem only reasonable to extend such controls to all the sensory thresholds of our being. We have no reason to be grateful to those who juggle these thresholds in the name of haphazard innovation. An astronomer looking through a The 200-inch telescope exclaimed that it was going to rain. His assistant asked, "How can you tell?" "Because my corns hurt." Environments are not passive wrappings, but are rather active processes which are invisible. The ground rules, pervasive structure, and overall patterns of environment elude easy perception. Anti-environments are counter-situations made by artists, provide beads of direct attention and enable us to see and understand more clearly. The interplay between the old and new environments creates many problems and confusions. The main obstacle to a clear understanding of the effects of the new media is our deeply embedded habit of regarding all phenomena from a fixed point of view. We speak, for instance, of gaining perspective. The psychological process derives unconsciously from print technology. Print technology creates the public. Electric technology created the mass. The public consists of separate individuals walking around with separate fixed points of view. The new technology demands that we abandon the luxury of this posture, the fragmentary outlook. The method of our time is to use not a single but multiple models of exploration. The technique of the suspended judgment is the discovery of the 20th century as the technique of invention was the discovery of the 19th. It isn't that I don't like current events. There just have been so many of them lately.
I absolutely feel this, that there is just this huge barrage of current events lately, the Trump stuff, all of it. I can't keep up. I can't keep up at all. Could they keep up in 1967? Can we keep up in 2018? I don't know.
The end of the line. The railway radically altered the personal outlooks and patterns of social interdependence. It bred and nurtured the American dream. It created totally new urban, social, and family worlds, new ways of work, new ways of management, new legislation. The technology of the railway created the myth of a green pasture world of innocence. It satisfied man's desire to withdraw from society, symbolized by the city, to a rural setting where he could recover his animal and natural self. It was the pastoral ideal, a Jeffersonian world, an agrarian democracy which was intended to serve as a guide to social policy. It gave us darkest suburbia and its lasting symbol, the lawnmower. The circuited city of the future will not be the huge hunk of concentrated real estate created by the railway. It will take on a totally new meaning under conditions of very rapid movement. It will be an information megapolis. What remains of the configuration of former cities will be very much like world's fairs, places in which to show off new technology, not places of work or residence. They will be preserved, museum-like, as living monuments of the railway era. If we were to dispose of the city now, future societies would reconstruct them, like so many Williamsburgs.
Okay, now they sound like they're talking in 1967 because, I mean, I live in the country. There are still cities. There are still railroads. Maybe this isn't the future yet. I don't know.
The past went that way. When faced with a totally new situation, we tend always to attach ourselves to the objects, to the flavor of the most recent past. We look to the present through a rearview mirror. We march backwards into the future. Suburbia lives imaginatively in bonanza land. When information is brushed against information, the results are startling and effective. The perennial quest for involvement, fill-in, takes many forms. The stars are so big, the earth is so small. Stay as you are. Stay as you are. In the nature of progress, artificial culture is striving to force the new media to do the work of the old. The malady lingers on. The poet, the artist, the sleuth, whoever sharpens our perception tends to be antisocial, rarely well-adjusted. He cannot go along with currents and trends. A strange bond often exists among antisocial types and their power to see environments as they really are. The need to interface, to confront environment with a certain antisocial power, is manifest in the famous story, The Emperor's New Clothes. Well-adjusted courtiers, having vested interests, saw the emperor as feudally appointed. The antisocial brat, unaccustomed to the old environment, clearly saw that the emperor ain't got nothing on. The new environment was clearly visible to him. Sneed Martin, Larceny Whipsnake, Chester Snavely, A. Pismo Clan, J.P. Pinkerton Snopington, Mahatma King Jeeves. He was always the man on the flying trapeze. On the stage, on the silver screen, all through his life, he swung between the ridiculous and the sublime, using humor as a probe. Humor is a system of communications and is a probe of our environment, of what's really going on, affords us the most appealing anti-environmental tool. It does not deal in theory, but in immediate experience, and is often the best guide for changing perceptions. Older societies thrived on purely literary plots. They demanded storylines. Today's humor, on the contrary, has no storyline, no sequence. It is usually a compressed overlay of stories. Amateur. My education was of the most ordinary description, consisting of little more than the rudiments of reading, writing, and arithmetic at a common day school. My hours out of school were passed at home and in the streets. Michael Faraday, who had little mathematical and no formal schooling beyond the primary grades, is celebrated as an experimenter who discovered the induction of electricity. He was one of the great founders of modern physics. It is generally acknowledged that Faraday's ignorance of mathematics contributed to his inspiration, for it compelled him to develop a simple, non-mathematical concept when he looked for an explanation of his electrical and magnetic phenomena. Faraday had two qualities that more than made up for his lack of education: fantastic intuition and independence and originality of mind. Professionalism is environmental. Amateurism is anti-environmental. Professionalism merges the individual into patterns of total environment. Amateurism seeks the development of the total awareness of the individual and the critical awareness of the ground rules of society. The amateur can afford to lose. The professional tends to classify and to specialize, to accept uncritically the ground rules of the environment. The ground rules provided by the mass response of his colleagues serve as a pervasive environment from which he is contentedly and unaware. The expert is the man who stays put. The thing of it is, we must live with the living. Montaigne. Because something is happening, but you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? Bob Dylan. History, as she is harped, write words in rote order. Bang.
Bang! Cleanse this space. Fluens abluere spatium. Remove the past. Removodendrum praeterita. I found my happiness at long last. Ego laetitia mia inveni in tempore novissimo. Fill this space with joy and love. Gaudium et amor apud unum modicum spatium. Send your blessings from above.
Oh, Antichrist? Quentin Fiore? Do you know him?